For as long as we've been thinking, we've been wondering how we think. I mean, how does the physical brain, this lump of tissue in our heads, create our entire inner world? Well, today, we're diving into a really fascinating new theory that gives a direct physical answer. It suggests your mind isn't just in your brain, it is the physical motion of your brain. Let's get into it.
I mean, this is the big one, right? The classic mind-body problem. Is your mind some kind of ghost in the machine? Or is it something much more deeply and physically part of the brain itself? This theory says it's definitely the second one, and the way it explains it is actually incredibly elegant.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the brain in a new way, as a continuous energy field. Then, we'll check out how different network structures pop up inside that field. After that, we're going to climb what's called the axis of awareness, all the way from deep sleep to a eureka moment. And finally, we'll put it all together to see how your mind is literally matter in motion.
Okay, so to get this, we have to start with a little shift in how we think about the brain. Instead of seeing it as a computer with a bunch of separate wires and parts, this theory asks us to imagine it as one single continuous field of energy.
This is the foundation, and it's called continuum theory. All it really says is that the physical stuff of your brain, the energy zipping through it, and your mind, they aren't three separate things. They're just different phases of one single field. You know, kind of like how water can be solid ice, liquid water, or steam. It's all just H2O, but in different energetic states.
So how does this field even work? It's through something called stress-strain flow. The idea is that your brain tissue is viscoelastic, which is just a fancy way of saying it's kind of like a gel, a bit solid and a bit liquid. As it works, it physically squishes and deforms, storing energy like a tensed-up spring. Just think of smartphone. You press your hand into it and it holds the shape. That's stored energy. Then when it bounces back, that energy gets released. The theory says your brain is doing this constantly, just on a microscopic scale.
And here's where it gets really interesting. This constant flow of stress and strain, it actually organizes the brain's connections. It creates different types of networks that let us think in different ways. They all exist on a spectrum, so let's look at the two opposite ends.
On one end, you have what are called fractal networks. Picture these as dense, stable, almost crystalline structures. They're perfect for storing memories and unconscious patterns. This is where all that strain energy gets held, like in that compressed foam. Then, on the complete other end, you've got random networks. These are totally fluid and loose, almost like a gas, and they let energy flow freely. This is the state you need for active, conscious thought.
So, and this is the crucial part, the brain is constantly moving between these states. When it's resting, it's mostly in that stable fractal state. But as you start to think about something, a little energy gets released, and it forms these small world networks that are like bridges connecting different ideas. Then when you're fully awake and focused, that energy is just flowing freely through a random network. Your mind coming online is a physical transformation of the brain's own structure.
Okay, so now we can use this whole framework to build something called the axis of awareness. We're going to climb step by step from the deepest unconscious states all the way up to those moments of pure insight, and we'll see how each level lines up perfectly with a physical state of the brain's field.
Let's start our climb at the very bottom of the ladder, right at the foundation of our mind, the unconscious.
Down here, at this level, the brain is in its most physical, most material state. All the energy is what we call stored strain. That's that compressed tension we talked about, and it's held tight within those stable fractal networks. This is the world of deep sleep, our basic instincts, and all the memories that are stored away but aren't active. It's basically the brain's physical hard drive.
Okay, let's take the next step up the ladder. This is where things start to get a little more fluid, where energy begins to stir. We're entering the realm of the subconscious. So here, that stored strain starts to get released, and it creates these little oscillations, or waves. The network structure shifts into that small world state, building those bridges between different memory clusters. This physical state is what gives rise to our dreams, to our intuition, to that kind of symbolic thinking, where different ideas and feelings all start to blend together. All right, climbing higher now, we arrive at the level we all know best, the state we're in right now, our everyday, waking consciousness.
In the conscious state, the energy isn't just oscillating anymore. It's in a state of balanced flow. It moves freely through this dynamic mix of small world and random networks, which allows us to perceive the world, use logic, and have a stable sense of who we are. You could actually say that consciousness in this model is a physical state of constant controlled motion.
But what happens if we climb all the way to the very top? The theory says there's one final peak state of awareness, the superconscious.
This is the state of peak experience. We're talking about those eureka moments, flashes of deep insight, or those intense flow states where everything just clicks. Physically, what's happening is a moment of perfect coherence, where all the different little waves in the brain suddenly synchronize and lock into one single unified rhythm. The tension disappears, resistance drops to zero, and information just flows effortlessly through the entire system.
So let's just step back for a second and look at the huge picture this whole thing paints. How does all of this really come together? This table just lays it out so perfectly. As we move up through the levels of awareness, from unconscious to superconscious, what we're really seeing is a physical transformation. The brain's continuum shifts from a dense, material state of stored energy all the way up to a fluid, mental state of pure coherence. Every single level of your mind is a direct physical expression of what the energy in your brain is doing. And this, right here, is the biggest idea to take away from all of this. These are not four separate minds stacked on top of each other. It is one single, continuous field that is transforming itself. The journey from unconscious to superconscious is simply the physical release of stored-up strain into organized, coherent energy. The source material really just captures it perfectly with this quote: "Consciousness unfolds as the progressive release of strain energy into coherence." In other words, your consciousness isn't some magical property that pops out of the brain. It is the physical process of your brain resolving its own tension and finding a state of harmony.
And that leaves us with one last, kind of profound question to chew on. If this theory is right, then your thoughts aren't just bits of data running on the hardware of your brain. They are the hardware, physically moving and reconfiguring itself in real time. What does that change about how you see yourself, your memories, and your own awareness?